It really sucks to feel like we're in that rut or locked down into a way of living that doesn't fit us anymore. I have totally been there. It's awful. It sucks even worse to get stuck with a situation like an illness or a total life overhaul that we didn't choose into. So what do we do about it? Michelle Lewis and I talk today all about visibility, fear, and what to do when our world feels painfully small. Michelle Lewis has a pretty great story, which overlaps similarities in my own story in some really wonderful ways. Michelle is such a joy to spend time with. I know you will love this conversation, so let's jump on in. You're listening to Bare Naked Bravery, a weekly podcast hosted by me, Emily Ann Peterson. As a singer-songwriter, author, teaching artist, and creative entrepreneur, I encounter some really fascinating stories. I'm on a mission to reveal the depth and width of bravery and its benefits to creatives like yourself. More than ever today, our world needs bravery, unique bravery, from everyone. This is the place where you find it. There is no script or censorship today because that's how these facets of Bare Naked Bravery are in real life. So if you're listening with little ears nearby, please know that some episodes may contain mature language and subject matter. One of the easiest ways you can share bravery with the world is to send this episode to a friend or two. Send them an email, text, or tweet. Tag them in one of my Instagram posts. My handle is Emily Ann Pete. Or leave us a review on iTunes. It takes seconds and can be done from your phone right now. Again, we need more bravery in the world. So let's be brave together. Okay, are you ready for some Bare Naked Bravery?
Woo! So ready.
Let's get naked.
Let's get nude.
Michelle, you are the visibility vixen.
Yes, ma'am.
What does that mean? I know what it means, but tell the rest of us what that means.
Well, at the time of recording this, we're in 2017, and I trademarked Visibility Vixen back in 2016, but you'll be seeing all over the place now people saying, visibility, the year of visibility, da-da-da-da-da, but it's like, how do you get there? What does that mean? And so I'm pretty much like the crossing guard with the flags that if you're a creative entrepreneur and you come in my direction, I'm like, okay, let's start over here with systems. Okay, now let's talk branding, and now let's go to videos and live streaming. So I'm kind of the crossing guard to help launching specifically ladypreneurs get really set up in all the different aspects that make visibility online possible.
Mm-hmm. And when we first connected, I wasn't sure about this right at first, but we later found out and discovered that we're both singer-songwriters.
Yep.
Both musicians. So how did you get from being a musician to being this visibility vixen? And dive into some of that story.
It's been a crazy journey. Oh my gosh. I feel like every entrepreneur has had 60 lives and I've had like 61. So I started in film and TV. I grew up in Hollywood. My dad was working on feature films like Face Off and Paycheck and Wind Talkers. So that's the environment I grew up in. And I loved it. So I'm like, I'm going to do TV film. So I got my degree in that and started working on TV sets like Pretty Little Liars and Chuck and Melrose Place. And as much as I loved it, my body did not. The 14-hour days were just ridiculously.
What was involved in those 14-hour days?
Well, for those shows, I was a stand-in. And so that means you get there right at call, which is usually 6:30 or 7 a.m. And then you are standing in for me, it was usually the lead actress. And usually she was there all day, every day, especially on Chuck. Oh my gosh, Yvonne, poor girl. She was there from dawn till dusk. And so I'd work for her all day long. Whenever she's not on camera or doing a sound check, it's me. So she comes in, rehearses, then goes back to makeup. I go on set, I'm reading her lines and setting her everything up with the camera, the audio, and all that. And then they say first team, Yvonne comes back, they shoot the scene, then they do, a turnaround or whatever, then I'm back. So it was very much like working, sitting, working, sitting, working, sitting.
Yeah. Like fully on and fully off.
Yeah. And
not even fully off.
When you're fully off, it means like you're sitting in a chair, like right behind like the set wall, so that when they scream like second take, you're like right there ready to go.
Wow.
So I was doing that in my early 20s, and due to some health issues before that, I started getting more and more exhausted working these long hours, and eventually had to step out of that just because it was not good for my health. Sure.
How so? Like, what happened?
I grew up kind of immune compromised. I had a lot of asthma. I was born with hyaline membrane disease, which is the inability to produce the enzyme. I think it's surfactant to breathe out. So my lungs were always struggling. So I was on antibiotics for about 10 years. Now they know not to do this to somebody, but around 2021, I started getting more and more ill, chronic migraines, and my organs started shutting down due to that antibiotic use that we didn't know at the time that that's why it was happening. So I stepped back from the film TV world, and
were you crushed?
I think yes. I think I was so sick at the time, it was just kind of survival mode. My dream was not to be a stand-in, so I always knew that I wanted to write my own show, act in my own show, which I was able to do a little bit later on. But that led me to when the doctors were like, we don't know what to do. You have like 6 months. We, as a family, me and my wonderful parents said, no way. And we started searching everywhere until we found natural medicine that could help me heal.
You said they gave you 6 months to live?
They approximated. It wasn't an official like death sentence, but they were like, at this rate, like this is the timeline that we see. But like I said, fortunately, my parents they're not going to listen to anybody, especially when it comes to their child.
So that's actually a really interesting point. Like, one of the ingredients of bravery that I've discovered is this defiant expectation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that's really hard to swallow for people who haven't built that skill up or haven't built that mindset up. I was talking with one of my mom's friends a couple weeks ago about a subject, and she just could not imagine a different realm, or couldn't imagine a different reality for this issue that we were talking about. And it was really evident to me in speaking with her that I couldn't do anything about it with her because she just didn't have that vision of possibility. Or she had the vision of possibility, but she didn't have the defiance to expect it.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, the only reality you can affect is your own. And specifically because I do have a side business now where I do see people in person that are dealing with severe health issues. But whenever they say something like that, like, well, I can't imagine not being on this medication or being, going to the doctor every 3 months for a blood test or whatever. I'm like, so how's that been working for you? Are you happy? Like, if you're happy going to the doctor and doing this and taking this medication and feeling the way you feel, keep doing it. But if it's not working, then you have the absolute right and responsibility to try something else. And I think my quote of my life that I realized when the brilliant man, Joe Dispenza, I had one of his video trainings, and he looked into the camera and he said, you are 100% responsible for who you are and where you're at. And I was like, no, don't talk to me like that, Joe, because I was still having chronic migraines at the time. And that's what it is. We give our identity, we give our health, we give our worth away. And for me, when we found this amazing woman named Morning Wolf, who founded an indigenous natural medicine called graphology, that's what she helped me realize, was that I had all of the power, all of the ability, and all of the capability to be my own person and to heal myself. Because no one else can heal for you, but you don't have to heal alone.
Right. Right. And you can still choose that healing for yourself by way of modern medicine.
Sure.
Or any other kind of medicine, I mean, depending on the situation. But I fully agree with you. You have to opt into it.
Yes. And you can't go into that putting all of the expectation on the healer, whoever that may be, to fix you. They're there to give you options and to give you different choices of a path you can go down, but don't give all of your power away because it'll just make you sicker. At least it did in my case.
So what was that like to... Well, clearly you grew up in a house where that defiant expectation was hanging around. Where else did that show up in your life as a result of living in that family or being brought up in that way?
I'm very blessed to have the parents I have, for sure. They never doubted my ability. They never saw me as the sick girl. They were always so invested in my future. So that was always a wonderful thing. I would love to say that, oh, I grew up and my identity was so strong and my self-worth was so strong, but it wasn't. I gave it away so much, especially middle school. I was bullied really heavily, I was in a couple toxic relationships. And so there were always the voices being like, hey, you're worth more. But unless you go through that journey yourself, it doesn't matter how many cheerleaders you have. So, but once we went to the degree of me starting to heal myself through more natural means, I had to be on bed rest for 2 years while
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, I had to be on bed rest for 2 years as my organs cleansed and healed and started to function again. So that was probably the lowest point for me, just because my life was literally laying in bed. I had a TV. Like, my dad would come in at lunchtime and dinner time to kind of help me get to the dinner table so I could eat. So that's when your world is so small that it's hard to see, a foot in front of you, regardless of 10 years down the road. So it was constantly believing that I was going to heal and that I could have a future. And that was really a choice, not an instinct, for sure.
When your days were that small, or when your world was that small, I would definitely do this. Like, I would just give in to the smallness and just because part of that bed rest and part of your rest when you're in that kind of dark night of the soul kind of situation, it really is good. It's like, okay, it's not the standard wallowing to just give up and just like let it be hard and difficult. It's kind of okay to just like let the world be small and feel really sad and when the circumstance allows for it. And fortunately you got to do that. But when you were having that 2 years of bed rest, did you make it like a choice to make your world a little bigger at a certain point?
I wish I had the tools I had now, because I would have used that time to study and learn and do all that kind of stuff. But I did not at the time. I think what I did is I really put a bottom to the okay, this is pretty much the worst it can get. And I think fear, especially the definition of false evidence appearing real, even if it is a physical situation, you have to really put a bottom to it and go, okay, this is the absolute worst. And can I accept and survive the absolute worst? Because a lot of times, especially like with the women that I coach with visibility, there's so much fear around becoming visible. There's so much like, well, what if I'm seen this way? Or what if I can't do this? Or imposter syndrome or whatever. And it's like, put a bottom to that fear and accept that, okay, even if the worst happens, I will survive it. And for me, that was the worst that could happen to me. And so it was just, I wish I had, like I said, I had the wisdom I had now, but it was just every day doing the best I could with what I had. And some days that was being in bed all day. Some days I could get outside to a chair and just sit in the sunlight and put my feet in the grass. But I'm so grateful for that time, because especially like one of the no, I'm going to say humorous discords I have with my husband. He grew up in Minnesota. He was so healthy. He ran track and field. He was on the homecoming court. I mean, like nauseating, right? So he never dealt with any kind of comprehension of health issues. And so now that he's in his later 20s and the metabolism slows down and, you start getting cavities and that kind of stuff, it's like, that's old hat to me, and I can help him and support him. But for him, it's like, it's a huge shock. Like, oh my gosh, I'm human. I'm not this Greek god like I was growing up. So it's helped me so much in entrepreneurship because I know exactly what to take in the morning and how to support my body. I know what I need to be doing if I'm like in course creation mode or if I'm in guesting mode or whatever. I have all the tools to keep myself insanely healthy. I don't get sick. I don't deal with any of that kind of stuff. If anything, I'll maybe detox once a year or something. But to have that kind of strong physical health, it's like a badge of honor because I've been through all of that muck.
Well, you just reminded me that, I had a bandmate who, when he had kids, or when he had his first daughter, one of his biggest realizations was that everything that the baby was experiencing was the first time, which was why she was crying all the time. Because like just a gust of wind was, abrasive and assaulting to this, little fresh womb child. And so I often think about that a lot, especially when I'm teaching a student or another creative entrepreneur, or I'm talking with a friend who's going through something rough. I always come back to that point of, well, have you ever experienced this before? No. That's probably why it feels so awful.
Yeah.
Not just like it's awful. I'm not invalidating or like not trying to invalidate the way you're feeling, but I'm sometimes knowing that, wow, this feels so awful because it's the first time it's happened to me. Maybe if it happens again, it won't feel so bad, but sometimes having the explanation of the severity of your response to something bad or good too, like if something awesome happens and you're just like through the moon, I mixed my metaphors, through the roof and up to the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you experience the good stuff too for the first time, sometimes that pendulum can swing the other way as well. Yeah.
I have a little post thing, whatever. Oh my gosh, post it in my office, and it says "so?" ? And I got that one time because I was at the coffee shop. So I'm always at the coffee shop. I was doing my study and I was, praying about some issues like, how am I supposed to move forward in my business when this is going on and this is going on, just being a real sob fest. And I heard that word, so, and that stuck with me so much because no matter where you're at, what you're going through, if it's huge challenge, if it's huge blessing, or if you're in a time of feast or famine or whatever, we tend to use our pain points, our struggles, our busyness as reasons not to get our message out there, not to touch people, not to be visible. But honestly, why not? Like, yeah, you're going through this huge thing and I'm so sorry for that, but so use that in your message. Like, don't let that be a reason for you to hold back and be afraid and be overwhelmed and all of that. Just keep going, keep doing it. And I'm really, really grateful for that one word because that does motivate me even on the most challenging day.
Oh, that's good. Before we get back to today's conversation, I want to real quick tell you about a hilarious free quiz I put together for you. You can find it by going to businessofbravery.com/quiz. I guarantee you'll laugh out loud at least once, if not way more, because I know I did when I was making it for you guys. The quiz has 12 questions all about various scenarios that us creative entrepreneurs go through with self-promotion on a day-to-day basis. So if you're curious about what your self-promotion personality mindset is, then go to businessofbravery.com/quiz. There are loads of hilarious GIFs, or is it GIFs? I don't know. Whatever you call them, they are all waiting for you at businessofbravery.com/quiz. You are welcome. Have fun and enjoy it. Okay, so you were on bed rest for 2 years.
Yes.
Going outside, finally getting some sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
Then what?
Then I started to improve a little bit. When I was on that bed rest is the time that I really started writing music, as I know you can identify with. So my parents were, pushing me, saying, you gotta start recording this. So I did start doing that on the not full time, but as much as I could until I built an album. And these are like the starts, a little bit of failure, and then the starts, a little bit of failure. So I was able to finish the album. I got a couple songs on that show I worked for, Pretty Little Liars. Wonderful. Wasn't able to get, whatever you call it, album distribution or whatever. So kind of put that on the back burner. Then I started writing a show, which we did shoot the pilot for, that I was able to act in. And then it kind of got taken away by Fox. So that was another kind of drag. So a lot of this.
A lot of roller coaster stuff.
A lot of roller coaster stuff. So at the time, you think it's the end of the world and I can't possibly do anything else because this is what I feel I'm gifted at. So I really had to wrestle not only with my pride, but with my, for lack of a better term, humiliation, where it was like, okay, I feel, I don't want to say failed, but this didn't work out. So now I have to try this. Now it was a constant reinvention of self. And I became very familiar with that because I had to do that physically first. I had to reinvent my body. And so it was all of these different things until when I got married and was still dealing with some headaches. My dad encouraged me and said, well, have you heard of ebooks? Like, have you ever thought about writing an ebook? So I dove into that, which led to, hey, I think I'm going to make an e-course about how I came back from multiple organ failure and how to, it's called Life Reboot because it really helps you get everything in balance. And that's what started my path into entrepreneurship.
That's really great. I love meeting other entrepreneurs who were first driven by the passion to serve other people, mm-hmm. as opposed to just the hashtag entrepreneur life.
Yeah.
It's just like, I know, gagging.
Yeah.
It's so funny. It's really funny. So on Instagram, I've been getting into Instagram lately, and mm-hmm. anytime I use a hashtag that has to do with entrepreneur, I end up getting like all these gangsta entrepreneurs following me. And I can see it. They're like, that entrepreneur life, yo. And then it's just such a different life than mine.
Oh my gosh, I know. I'm like, what are you doing? You know that you're at home in your sweatpants right now working on your business. Like, why are you posting that, silly pants? At least maybe that's just me, but.
So how did you go from your Life Reboot course to Visibility Vixens? Like, take us on that journey.
Oh my goodness, right? Well, when I built the Life Reboot course, I was getting my doctorate in reflexology, natural medicine, because I wanted to be able to, if people were in crisis, help them through it. So I thought like, oh, the entrepreneur world, I'm going to be a life coach. It's so unique and just, it's no other people are life coaches. So then I started getting into the Facebook groups, and it was like, I felt like I was drowning in a sea of health and life coaches, and there was no way to differentiate what I did. It's like, you talk about hormone producing glands, people are just like, huh? So I felt that even though Life Reboot is so amazing and I love it, and that's the first step. Like, if you're going to come to me and work with me, go through that course, because then you'll really know if this is the true message you're supposed to bring. It's going to help you stay balanced, blah, 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 blah. But I knew that there was something more that I was supposed to be doing. So I went to coffee with one of my friends, and she was like, well, have you ever thought about teaching people video? And I was like, no, everyone knows how to do video. And she was like, no, they don't. I said, really? So I started thinking about it and talked to my cameraman husband, and he was like, well, let's make a course. Like, you know how to do it now. So we created Video University, and that is kind of like when it all started happening. At the time, I called myself Ladypreneur Legacy, but when I went to file for the trademark, Ladypreneur was trademarked, and so is why I tell people now, like, do the trademark search first. Otherwise, it's going to be a pain in the butt to rebrand. But I had reserved this domain years ago called Visibility Vixen, and I cannot tell you why. I have no idea. It was in my GoDaddy account. I had reserved it at some point, and it just felt like, oh, this is what I want to do. Like, this is who I can identify with. This is who I'm supposed to be. And then from the time that I filed that, everything became so clear. And that's when I built the rest of my courses and my funnels and everything. And it's just been such an incredible ride.
Do you have favorite students that have been really brave? Because I imagine that by working with students who don't know a lot about video stuff, that you're actually coaching them through a lot of self-image, bravery stuff.
I do a Comfy on Camera challenge every couple of months in my Facebook group. And that's my favorite part because, first of all, you get to watch people all over the world. I mean, Italy and Sweden and Canada and Australia. And that part's just really fun for me because I'm like, oh my God, we're all connected. It's a small world after all. But then I'd have to say one of the girls who tried to start the challenge, but she had a lot of fear around it. And she emailed me and was like, I'm so sorry I couldn't complete the challenge. Like, she felt really bad about it. And I'm like, it's fine. This is for you. But she said, I literally go into panic attacks and have severe fear. And I supported her as much as I could. And I said, listen, like, this is not meant to make you sick or to make you struggle. But if you have that feeling that you have a message that needs to get out there, then this is something that we can definitely work through together. And so she signed up for Video University and she did her first video on her page. And so that to me was so much more exciting than the best live streamer in the group, is to have someone that had a debilitating fear that was finally able to step out and be like, I can do this. And I'm ready to put all of this past crap from all the lies about my worth, I believe, from my past behind me. That's what totally lights me up about visibility.
Yeah. Yeah. When I get a new student who is really nervous about any of this stuff that we're talking about, my first thing and we've talked about this before, my first thing that I do is I analyze, and together with the student, I'm analyzing and looking at, like, what are their realities? What is their personality? What's their lifestyle like on a daily basis? What kind of home situation do they have? What are the daily routines that they don't have or do have? And usually from there, look, pertains to cello lessons, music lessons, songwriting lessons, or even like self-promotion stuff. Usually going from those constraints is a really great starting point. Right? So you can look at, my personality, I'm an introvert. This is me talking. I really am an introvert. And in some industries that would be just an automatic, like, dead on arrival stamp, but I don't believe that has to be the case. I don't think that just because you are an introvert or you are a 2 on the Enneagram or or you're going through a divorce or you're just had a kid, like any of these lifestyle hiccups, those are not complete detour or dead end signs for what you want or how you want to go about things. So I think it then comes about having a creative approach to dealing with those constraints and realities, which it sounds like that's what you did as well. So that's awesome.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen the sketches that Walt Disney did for when he wanted to make Epcot an actual town, but there was like all these glass, things, and it was this big dome. And that's what I picture when I think about my reality. And that's what I really dove into in my visibility training, because how much, first of all, what is your reality, which is based on what are your beliefs, but who has built that reality? Because chances are it is not you. Just, it's generational, it's experiential, it's familial, it's all of those things, because the vibration of those negative identities are much easier to put on. If you have much higher frequencies like love and joy and peace and enlightenment and all of that kind of stuff, it's a very high frequency. So that's why it takes time, especially we're in an amazing era of self-development. But like they say, oh, I'm expanding and now I'm having to detox all the old stuff. And okay, now I'm taking a step forward, I'm detoxing the old stuff. It is hard to get up here to this frequency that we need to be in our self-identity in order to really help other people. It's much easier to be down here, anger, shame, guilt, betrayal, all of those things. And so when you finally are able to take a step back and look at yourself in the third person and look at that dome and just ask the question and sit there and listen to, what's my reality built upon? Because then you're going to start hearing all of those lies from your youth, from your family, from your bullies, from your exes, all that stuff. It will come screaming out, because that's the subconscious telling you, hey, you've instructed me to play all of these tapes. And then it's our choice to go, am I ready to burn all of those tapes and rewrite them? Mm-hmm. And that's when we can get to the place of figuring out, what are the core beliefs that you have? Is it that you're loved? Is it that you're worthy? Is it that you always give your best and your best is good enough? Done. No expectation. Is it that you believe that God is for you and that God is here and that he loves you? That's what really made the biggest change in my identity, because I took authority that, no, this is my life. This is who I am. And no one gets past here, right? Mm-hmm. Of the construct I've built. Mm-hmm. I think that is the most incredible work that you can do for yourself, for your life, that will then start in a good way bleeding out into your business.
Yeah. When I was in recovery from my eating disorder in my 20s, mm-hmm. The tapes that replayed were, first of all, terrifying, which is why I had an eating disorder. Yeah. Secondly, they were so ingrained that I didn't even know that they existed.
Exactly.
Until someone else, another professional person, had to point them out to me. And even, my therapist essentially was pointing me to have a vision of a different vision of possibility, mm-hmm. rather than being stuck in the game and the tapes that kept playing and repeating and just basically beating me into the ground. And breaking or burning those tapes, it's really tricky to do. I know that there are some professionals out there who believe that, like, oh, you can do it right away. Like, it's pretty quick. You just make the choice and do it. But I know
maybe they have some kind of magic or something.
My eyebrows go just as high as yours do. And and I give them the stink eye of like, yeah, sure. Because
good luck to you, sir.
I know. Like, we want the quick fix. Mm-hmm. We want to get to that higher place of like being the person we want to be. But quite honestly, I wouldn't have if I could choose a different way, I wouldn't do it. Like, if I could choose an easier way than the way that I found, I wouldn't have done it, because the effort that I put into making that change for myself is so rewarding, especially knowing that I did it. I alone, like you said, was the one that was redefining my parameters of living. And I think if somebody had come in and said, here's your magic fairy dust, go for it, I would have grabbed it just out of being innocent and naive, but I would have found myself back in the same place over and over again.
Well, and the journey is different for everybody, but you can definitely, in a split second, go, I'm so sick of this. I will do anything to get out of this. Because it's absolutely easier to stay where you're at, stay in that low frequency, roll around in it. But especially like Joe Dispenza teaches, If you are in protect mode due to past trauma, negative voices, all that kind of stuff, all you can do is recreate the past. So you're not even in the present. You're back here. That's why you're still attracting the same failures, the same toxic relationships, the same baggage, the same just feelings of being miserable. It's because you're recreating the past. And when you do that, the body does not regenerate. It can't, because it has no instruction to do so. So it tries to keep you going the best of its ability, but that's why the kidneys start giving out, the adrenals get exhausted, the digestion stops, the pineal gland stops, which compromises the immune system. That's when that happens. The body follows the mind. So if you're able to look at this and go, I'm so sick of recreating the past, at the very least, I want to start by living in the present. That's when you really take your thoughts captive and every single day go, I live in the present and joy is a choice and I'm choosing joy. I'm moving forward into growth. That's when you're going to start feeling really weird, because you're like, wait, I'm supposed to be miserable, but I'm happy. I don't understand what's going on. Joe Dispenza calls that the river of change. And then you're able to take a step forward into creating your own future. And in your physical body, that happens through brain cells called neurons. So they take the directives that you give your subconscious saying, I want to create this, 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 like you see vision boards, intentions. And that's what helps you start actually waking up your body, healing your body, moving forward and being able to create. That's what's different about these amazing entrepreneurs that are creating. It's not just because they're different and you'll never get there. It's because they've done the work where they're actually creating their own future and they're out of protect mode into growth. So that's the biggest difference that I've seen in my business from when I first started to now.
Mm-hmm. Even in just a small scientific proof of that, there are so many studies out there on the benefits of meditating right before you go into surgery.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, yes. Oh.
And there are now, doctors and nurses who will be like, you might think this is BS, but here, just listen to this for 30 minutes before you go into surgery. Mm-hmm. And the heart rate is more stable and ready for surgery. The recovery
it gets you into alpha state.
Well, and the recovery process is so much better, because what's happening when you're meditating is you're accessing all the neuron juice that needs to get activated, like you said, for this new future version of you.
It's like that study, I can't remember what school it was, but I posted it on my Facebook that it was a school that had very troubled youth. Kids were always in detention and hitting each other and all that kind of stuff. So they introduced, instead of detention, it was meditation. And all these kids had to lay down on these mats and meditate and think about what they did, think about what they could have improved, and choose a different option in their minds. And the detention rate went from, I think it was 70% to 0 in a year. 0. I'm not saying like 1%, 0. It's an incredible thing, especially, and I know I keep talking about Joe Dispenza. He has an app where he has these meditations to help walk you through, to be able to get out of beta state, which is when you're like, oh my God, what's going on? I don't feel in control. I feel upset. Oh my gosh, someone said this, someone said that crazy state, which I get into as well, and transition into that alpha state. You're accessing way different information. You're on an entirely different frequency. It does incredible things for your body, for your relationships, for your business, because you're not as reactive. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
It's cool stuff.
Very cool stuff. I could nerd out on this stuff all day long.
I know, me too.
So before we wrap things up, give us a little assignment. I always like to have a brave takeaway from every episode. And it could be like a question that we ask ourselves or something else. What would be something that you would want somebody to walk away from this with?
Get out of your house, your apartment, your car, whatever, your job. Go to a coffee shop. You can go to a garden too if that's better, or the ocean or whatever, but I go to the coffee shop and write out 50 of your strengths. Not just like 5, I want 50, 50. Feel free to post them in the group or tag me in them. I'd love to see them. But when you have to do that, you can't be listening to the tapes. You have to be creating something new and actually lifting yourself up. And for me, that was such an amazing practice. I did the 50 strengths, and that led to what are 100 ways that I help benefit people through my business, which was a recommendation by Adrian Dorson. And that was so powerful for me, because sometimes you are able to outline your strengths and go, why am I not talking about this in my business? Why am I not helping people with this? This is my strength. So I think that that's a really powerful way for you to recognize your abilities right now and start becoming more successful and more happy in your life with yourself, in your life with your relationships, and then in your life with your business.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
Write them out.
That's really great. Okay. I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to
I'll just sit here and
end the call and go for it.
You can do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle Lewis, for joining us. I really, really appreciate you joining us. I know there's a lot of things that everyone up for this is for all of you. I know there's a lot of stuff that you could be doing, but the stuff we talked about today with Michelle is really powerful and really important. And I am really grateful that you shared your story with us, Michelle.
Well, you know that I love you.
I do. And I'm grateful, and it's right back at you. Wasn't that great? Okay, so as we discussed, your brave takeaway from today's show is to separate yourself a little bit from the rest of the world. Go to a coffee shop, go to a library, park, put your headphones in, whatever you do, and then write out not 20, not 30, but 50 strengths that you see in yourself. Even if you think it's a small strength and not worth writing down, I really challenge you to put it on the page anyways. Use this as an exercise to begin seeing a new vision of possibility for yourself and for your own life. We would love to hear all about your favorite parts of today's Bare Naked Bravery episode. You can find Michelle Lewis and myself on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and more. Go ahead and tag us so that we can cheer you on and see what you're up to. I know that Michelle and I would love to hear all about your 50 strengths if you complete the exercise successfully. It's hard to do. I just did it. It's really hard. But it's worth it. It's totally worth it. Michelle has a lovely little surprise bundle of gifts for you in the links we listed in the show notes. So be sure to visit barenakedbravery.com for those show notes. And that's our show this week. If you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed making it for you, then please give us a review and rate the show in your iTunes desktop app or on your podcast app on your phone. It really does help us out a lot more than it is a hassle for you. It takes like 30 seconds, especially if you're on your phone doing it. All of the bravery that we share in today's episode and in all the other awesome stories that we've shared, it deserves to be spread as far and wide as possible. And that's where you come in. It's brave. Share it. If you are digging the music in today's episode, that is because it's brought to you by my friends at Music Box Licensing, a premier creative music agency dedicated to finding and crafting unique soundtracks. To find out more about all the artists, musicians, and other sponsors of the show, go to barenakedbravery.com/sponsors. That's it. I'm looking forward to being with you next week. We have some awesome things in store for you. Until then, I have one message for you. It's this: be yourself, be vulnerable, be brave, because the world needs more of your bare naked bravery.